Okay, if you never heard of the punk rock NBA, this is it. This is your moment. Like, uh, life is really awesome. This guy is does like music commentary and documentaries and stuff like that. The Sudden Rise of BABYMETAL. BABYMETAL is a death metal band from Japan that does like kind of like as a J-pop vibe, and that I really like. That I actually learned to like because like technically like it became like quite the fucking band. Industry plans, I really don't care if they are or not because they're really talented. But like the Sudden Rise, where did they come from? Because like there was like a time where like yeah, like there was a time with like without like BABYMETAL, and now like it's they really succeeded at becoming like recognized. So let's check this out.
Oh God, and I do not care if there is a difference!
What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock NBA, and today we're here to talk about none other than BABYMETAL, who are one of the most recognizable and unique voices in modern metal. They're known for combining various genres of metal, such as
It is true. It is absolutely true. They are really recognizable in their ways. Like, really check it out if you never fucking did. You need to love Japanese though. Like, I understand if Japanese is not your vibe. Like, to Japanese, it's still Japanese music, right? But still, like, if you like how Japanese music sounds, like this is BABYMETAL. Is like you gotta fucking just check it out for yourself because it is that good.
death metal, thrash metal, metalcore, and all kinds of other stuff, all with the cutesy vocals of a Japanese idol group. Pretty strange combination, right? And yet somehow it totally works. And if you're not familiar, they sound...
It does totally works. Like for real, the clips and stuff, like the music videos, like really, it is really fucking did, and it's really like smooth and beautiful.
Like this. Definitely not what you expect from your average metal band, right? And yet they're crushing it, selling out arenas all over the world with millions of Spotify listeners. But they're also one of the most controversial bands in modern metal because they didn't
Okay, this I want to know because technically I know nothing about BABYMETAL. If there are like industry plans like he wrote, I really don't give a fuck because like technically industry plans, if at the end of the day it's just people that got that push up from a brand, from like basically a studio, it's fine if at the end of the day it's they do music, right, or they do art, right? And BABYMETAL, they actually do art, so it's like, yeah, good artists got noticed and they got promoted, and it was the right thing to do. So this is kind of like my opinion on like industry plans. Like if it's like for an actual artist and it actually has a meaning, fuck yeah. Like who cares if you're a sellout? Everyone is fucking struggling in this industry anyway, in the music industry anyway.
Come together like your average metal band where they met in high school shop class or whatever. Instead, they were put together by a Japanese idol management group in the same way as we would think of a pop act like NSYNC.
Oh yeah, idol groups like manager, basically like their groups. For K-pop, it's like you can get more info, but J-pop as well. So basically like these people, they know how to fucking like schedule like your fucking career as an idol. An idol is basically in between like basically a singer and a celebrity and a top model, like some kind of like. And basically like they are like they know how to fucking promote and sell this. So it's not like that complicated. They're not like industry plans, but like it's literally people that like are like they have the training and they know how to do it. If you're curious about it, it's actually like really people really controlling, and in Korea with like K-pop being so becoming so big, like it became like quite dark at times, but like it's really like professionals about like they don't fuck around about like actually doing music and art and being an idol. The idol world is like such a beautiful thing.
Backstreet Boys would be. And so the question is, how did they become some of the fastest rising stars in metal seemingly overnight? And even more importantly, what does their success say about metal fans? And of course, the question everybody asks about baby metal, are they industry plants? Those are the questions that I will try to answer in this video. And also, I want to thank Exter for sponsoring this video. Exter is known for inventing the first trackable wallet, and now they're on a mission to upgrade the rest of your carry essentials. They make sustainable wallets, bags, and accessories to help you get more out of every day. One thing I like is that they're super slim, about half the size of a conventional wallet, but it still carries over 12 cards in cash. See? And you can get all your cards out by clicking this trigger. Very satisfying. And it has RFID protection to prevent data theft. It's also sustainable, made of materials like vegan Italian leather and space-grade aluminum. You can also track your wallet from your phone using the solar-powered tracking device. So if you want to check it out, use my code PUNKROCKMBA to get up to 45% off. Just hit the link in the description of this video. Our story begins back in 2009 when a music producer named Kobayashi Ken, better known as Koba Metal, embarked on this idea of creating a fusion group that combined idols with metal. And if you're not familiar, the term idol in Japan essentially means an entertainer, usually a singer or some sort of social media personality. And the main appeal of those idols is their attractiveness and their usually manufactured personality, like Justin Bieber, Christina Aguilera, or Elvis Presley. And it doesn't seem that far off in terms of comparison to Western pop artists.
They also have like a different idols. They have a different connection to their audience, to their public, basically to their fans. It's like, especially in Japan, because like, but like for real, like if you, I won't talk about it too much because like it's really actually like such a cool world and interesting world. So if you're curious, try to check out like some stories about like K-pop, like to start up, like because it's really that's fucking cool, and you wouldn't expect that these people, they're such fucking like so professional in what they do. But the idol world is like just like it's a bunch of psychos as well, you know, like
but in this case it's even a bit more industry manufactured. And to be clear, in my opinion, there's nothing necessarily wrong with the idea of putting together a group like this. In the eyes of a lot of American rock fans, there's sort of this idea that the performer and the songwriter have to be the same person, but I'm not sure that that has to be the case or that that's necessarily even realistic. Because if you think
yeah, and technically, like, if they're not connected to now, like the songwriter is still a songwriter, so it doesn't mean that like it's just like some people just they cannot fucking like dance and fucking sing, but they can songwrite, you know, like they cannot fucking perform, you know.
Think about it. There's very few people who have the star power, the capability to write music and perform it in a charismatic way. The number of people who have all of those three things is very, very small. And recognizing that, the Japanese music industry seeks out people who do have that charismatic star power and builds a team behind them who can help them with other stuff like marketing, writing their music, creating their look, and so forth. And in the eyes of Japanese fans, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how the industry works. How you feel about that is up to you, but just something to keep in mind as we go on. And getting back to the origin of baby metal in particular, the producer Koba Metal recognized the talents of Suzuka Nakamoto from her prior group called Karen Girls, and he envisioned her as the perfect fit for this new group that he had in mind. The group was officially formed in 2010 in Tokyo, Japan, as a subset of an already established female idol ensemble.
I'm not like into like K-pop or J-pop like mega fan, right? But like like baby metal is also like a good introduction to beautiful choreographies over music that like you don't get in other that you only get if you love J-pop or K-pop. And basically like this is really like something like really beautiful to do and really entertaining to fucking watch, like
called Sakura Gakuin, which they referred to as the Heavy Music Club. And right out of the gate, BABYMETAL did get some initial traction on their early singles, as well as festival appearances all over Japan and in other places in Asia like Singapore, but nothing that really stood out compared to their other peers in the idol industry. And back then, they were pretty much completely unknown in the West, other than maybe some people who were super into Japanese culture, aka weeaboos. But all of that was about to change in the year 2013. The two singles that they released that year, called Jime Dame Zettai and Megitsune, earned them a whole lot more attention than they had gotten before. And this is right about the time when you may have started to hear a little bit more about them on the West in any kind of larger scale, all of which culminated in the release of their debut self-titled album, which came out in February of 2014. And as most of you know, for BABYMETAL, this was a really big deal. If you were reading metal blogs at the time, this was like one of the main topics of conversation among metal fans for that entire year. Every metal outlet was covering them all the time, but to me, what was even more interesting is that they were able to get the attention of people who typically don't even listen to metal at all. To give you an example of what I mean, the video for Gimme Chocolate currently sits at 200 million views, and the biggest reaction channel on YouTube did a video about them where they had various big YouTubers react to BABYMETAL, and that video itself has millions of views.
They just look like they're having so much fun. Like,
look, I could just imagine myself being at this show.
This was much more than just another album that made waves in the metal scene. This was like something that penetrated into mainstream pop culture. And musically, this album is completely all over the place, but I think in a good way. It essentially combined elements of every major metal subgenre while having these Japanese idol archetypes on vocals. For example, it has songs that are just like straight up power metal, while at the same time having moments that are just pure death metal. And what I think really stood out about the way that BABYMETAL approached genre bending is that for a lot of artists, they try to do it in a way that feels seamless and natural. For example, if you listen to a band like A Day to Remember, where they combine metalcore and pop punk, but it still just really feels like this one cohesive thing that feels like a very organic,
actually, that's true. BABYMETAL is really like, it feels natural to fucking like, to just like admire, you know, to just fucking like enjoy. It doesn't fucking take you out, and we're talking about Japanese fucking metal, where it's like the language barrier, as much as like I love Japanese, I know that like the language barrier is complicated to some, and that like you cannot fucking just like get into like loving Japanese for the way it sounds in a just after hearing it once, you know, like it's really something that like not every language has, but like for Japanese there is like a time of adaptation, and I can understand why some people cannot fucking stand just like hearing like a TV show or like hearing Japanese music just because it sounds so unique and different, you know, like to each their own.
Natural blend. But with BABYMETAL, it is the exact opposite of that. With them, they did it more with the intent of seemingly to shock the listener, where these genre changes just come out of nowhere in a really jarring, chaotic kind of way. And at first, I was not really the biggest fan of BABYMETAL. The exact moment that converted me to a fan is I went to Santa Barbara on a honeymoon with my wife after we got married. We went to a Japanese store there called Daiso, and they were playing some like crazy metal in the store. I couldn't quite make it out, but I was like, what in the fuck is this? This is like nothing else I've ever heard before. And then I realized it was BABYMETAL. I gave them another shot, and I became a fan. Like I said, it took a little bit of time for me to get used to it, but once I got what they were going for, it really made sense to me. And of course, from a marketing standpoint, it's brilliant. To have these three teenage girls singing these cutesy choruses and then pull out some kind of weird metal shit completely out of left field, it's the kind of thing that if you're a really serious fan of metal, you can listen to it and sort of understand these references that they're picking out. And if you're not a metal fan, it just is this crazy over-the-top spectacle. And put it in terms of YouTube, it just makes for great content.
What the hell? Is this the same video?
There's no way it's the same song. What?
This is sick.
But despite the massive success that they were having both in Asia and in the Western markets, the average metal fan definitely was not on board with them. And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why. I think the biggest one is that metal fans value what they perceive to be authenticity. And like I said earlier, that aspect of like individual craftsmanship in the music that they consume.
Yeah, but like I think that like even if you're not authentic and you're just trying to create something, when you do as much effort as baby metal to create like a beautiful art, I think that like authenticity like is something like you can like at certain points, like you gotta understand, like everyone is against like sellouts and stuff like that, but everyone is technically, because like at the end of the day, like everyone's end up like trying to sign a contract or become bigger, and it's not a fucking like evil thing to do. And I think that like there is like really this like debate about like, is an artist a nice person if they are like sellouts? And it depends, but like usually, like for example, like for some examples, it's just people that like don't know better, and at the same time like just sign to have like someone who actually supports them. But it's just like interesting, like this whole like sellout, not sellout, like industry plants. Who cares at the end of the day, you know? If the music is good, who cares?
So to them, for baby metal to come out as this thing that was very clearly manufactured by the industry to be as marketable as possible, just didn't really sit right with them. Especially because it came out also that the girls themselves really didn't know or care about metal at all before they did the group. But to their credit, even though the group itself is most definitely manufactured as a product to make as much money as possible, which to be clear, I don't think is a bad thing. That's the case for lots of movies and TV shows and video games that.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, like doing this much effort, like if you listen to baby metal and see the level of production, this much effort to do big money, they could have fucking stopped at some point and just like and not go for like the big show, you know, like, and they did. So it's like it cannot be for fucking money, because like look at the whole fucking like passion that these people are, and how much detail there is to their art, you know, like
we like. And I don't really see why music would be any different. But that aside, it's clear that the people who are the creative forces behind baby metal most definitely do have a genuine passion for the genre. For one, Koba Metal, who is the main mastermind behind the group, he's not just some guy from the music industry that cooked up this idea of baby metal purely for money. Sure, obviously that's part of it, but he is a genuine metalhead, and I think baby metal was really a passion project for him, where he was able to sort of combine these two worlds that he loved into one thing. And in terms of the backing band, which has had various different people in it over the years, many of which were in very legit established bands, and across the board, these are some of the most tight, technically proficient players that you're going to find in the entire industry. And if it wasn't for baby metal, the guys in the backing band wouldn't have the platform that they do, which number one allows them to show off their skill to the world, and number two allows them to make a lot more money than they would grinding it out in clubs playing to 100 or 200 people a night. But with all of that said, considering how much they just sort of exploded onto the scene.
Yeah, the technical level of like the instrumental level of baby metal is also like off the roof. Like it's unbelievable. It's really fucking like pretty, you know?
With that first album, a lot of people were wondering if this was just a flash in the pan or if the band could stick around for the long term. Well, that question was more or less answered with their second album, Metal Resistance, which came out in March of 2016. And with this one, they played it a lot more straight than on the first album, although they still obviously had the whole like teenage girls doing metal kind of shtick. But this time the songs were a little bit less zany and more serious. They also toned down the genre bending aspect quite a bit, with the transitions being a lot more smooth, and just overall not having so much of that effect of like, what in the fuck did I just hear? The songs are definitely still diverse and very different from each other, but in a little bit more of a natural way. For example, the opening track, Road of Resistance, which is sort of power metal inspired, even featuring Herman Lee of Dragon Force. While on the other hand, you have a song like From Dusk Till Dawn, which is pretty clearly inspired by what Bring Me the Horizon was doing at the time. And it seemed like with all of this, their goal was to take BABYMETAL from being what very much could have been a flash in the pan and turn that into a long-term project that could be around for years and years to come. And it's fair to say that they succeeded, because not only is this album sonically better than their debut, according to most people, but it proved that they were here to stay, because as everyone watching this knows, not only are they still around, but they are more popular than ever. And overall, this album was a massive success, just like their first one. For one, Koba Metal received an Excellence Award from the Association of Media and Digital.
That's awesome to know, like for the guy, because like, dude is just mega fan of metal and idols and wanted to fucking do something about it. It got the fucking award. Good on him.
Or AMD in Japan for his role in elevating the band's international success. And after the release of Metal Resistance, they made history as the very first Japanese act to headline Wembley Arena in London. And to top it all off, Triple H announced that their song Karate would be one of the themes for WWE's NXT TakeOver, which, as we all know, if you have made it into the WWE as a metal band, you're pretty much at the top of the heap. And after a lot of touring, they started teasing their next release. In April of 2018, they put out a YouTube video called Metal Resistance Episode 7, The Revelation. And this video introduced the concept of a dark side within BABYMETAL, inhabited by the quote-unquote 7 metal spirits, teasing the beginning of a new era.
An unknown dark side also exists. A legend of 7 metal spirits. The Chosen 7.
And this is probably a good place for us to get into the whole lore aspect of the band, where in their live show, they present themselves as one of the conduits of the Fox God, aka the 10 Tails from Naruto. I think this is some sort of a character in Japanese folklore, where they exist to spread their message through his music. They also do a fox sign with their hands instead of the traditional metal horns in a lot of their promotional material. And if you're into that sort of thing and you want to know more, they also released a graphic novel called Apocrypha, The Legend of BABYMETAL, back in 2018.
This is really, really fucking cool.
Eventually, after all of that, in October of 2019, they...
let me check out if it's on... No, okay.
They released their third album called Metal Galaxy. And on that album, they more or less picked up where they left off with Metal Resistance, while also including some new influences that fit in surprisingly well with their sound. For example, some Indian influences on the song Shanti Shanti Shanti. In that same year, they were the very first Japanese band ever to play at the Forum in LA. And initially, they had planned another big touring cycle around the album, but as you might guess, COVID ended up putting a stop to all that, although there were still some interesting developments happening regardless. Most notably, they were featured on a Bring Me the Horizon song called Kingslayer, which ended up being one of their most popular songs. And after that, in December of 2020, they commemorated their first decade as a band with the release of their retrospective album 10 BABYMETAL Years. And around a year later, they put out a cryptic video message hinting at a significant transition, which a lot of fans interpreted as them either going on hiatus or breaking up forever. The 3 metal spirits that have been shining since 2010, even if they were to leave Earth, would continue to shine forever in our hearts and across the metal galaxy. A legend turns into a myth, which turns into a living legend. What lies ahead beyond the end of this
Oh no, this is sad actually. They broke up. No.
stairway to becoming a living legend is something only the Fox God knows. But despite all the speculation, in October of 2022, they announced their 4th album called The Other One, which ended up releasing in March of 2023. And this was definitely their most focused work to date. For one, this was the first time that the girls themselves had any sort of input in the composition department, most notably the lyrics for Divine Attack, which were written solely by the lead vocalist Suzuka Nakamoto, aka Su-Metal. And musically, this album is essentially if you combine sort of everything happening in modern metal with influences of J-rock. For example, the song Monochrome has some parts that really wouldn't be out of place on an Architects song. And they also pretty much completely ditched the whole like cutesy teenage girls gimmick, which was the right move to make because the girls in the group at that time were in their mid-20s. And that whole thing was kind of weird to begin with, at least from the perspective of Americans. And it's to their benefit because I would consider this their best and most consistent album to date. Which brings us to the last question of this video. What is their lasting impact? The main one, I think, is that they introduced metal to a group of people that otherwise probably would never have gotten into it. They essentially appeal to that like otaku, weeaboo, theater kid kind of demographic.
And they also like gave Japan like a new way to, because baby metal like entered an industry that like wasn't Japanese at all. Like, and I think that like they really offered Japan like a beautiful presentation and a beautiful example of what can Japan do when trying to do art using Western using like inspiration from Western culture. So really awesome, actually.
That's into anime or maybe games like League of Legends, which is an absolutely massive group of people that no other metal band had really been able to tap into before. Another thing is the fact that they were really the first metal band to really make it big out of Japan, which I would imagine probably inspired a lot of other people in Japan to see if they could do the same things themselves. And so with that in mind, I really don't think it's a coincidence at all that Japanese metal bands like Cold Rain or Crystal Lake got traction in the West after baby metal broke through. But I think really their biggest contribution is that they went from being really what is essentially a bunch of industry plants to now being something that is more and more closely resembling genuine artists, meaning that the people in the band have more and more input on the songwriting while also ditching a lot of those gimmicks and taking it a lot more seriously than they did in the beginning. And although there's nothing at all wrong with gimmicks, I think it's cool that they didn't just sort of ditch the group and throw it away as soon as like the cutesy girl gimmick had run its course, which you see a lot of times with idol music or for that matter with Western pop music. That certainly would have been the easy route to take, but instead they chose to stick around and reinvent themselves year after year after year and become something really totally different. And since they are really still a fairly new band, all things considered by metal standards, I think they have a bright future ahead of them and I'm excited to see what their next move is.
I really hope that they do have a bright future because like for real, like about being industry plants or whatever, like when you see the music videos and how they perform, they're so passionate about it. You can see that like they like what they do and that they really found themselves in this project. So yeah.
All right, everybody, that does it for this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. And also, I'd like to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially those of you who
fucking crash. Come on.
Support at the True Cult level or above. Patrons get all my...
Yeah, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe to the Punk Rock MBA. Thank you so much. This was an awesome documentary. I got the answers that I wanted. Like this man is like really a fucking legend.